What's going on, guys? This is an invitation to peace, and I'm your host, Chad Campese. Now, I don't know where you're at or what you're going through, but I do have a question for you, and I'll ask it honestly, probably more than you're comfortable with. How are you? How are you? How's your life? Your relationships, your kids, your health, your job, even your faith. And look, I know all the normal answers, the surface responses: good, great, fine, living the dream, which in my profession and probably all the other ones as well means something completely different. But we don't do normal or surface here. So I'll ask it again. How are you? Hit me up. Let me know. chad.campese@gmail.com. chad.campese@gmail.com. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn and Facebook. So, after thinking about how you are, could you use a little hope, healing, peace, and maybe even a little adventure? Because that's the only goal here. The only goal for this podcast is to help you find all those things, and, in my opinion, so much more, by focusing on a spirit-driven approach that produces life-altering results. Hey, and just a heads up, this is a zero filter, zero filler, zero judgment show, so there's no room for little ears here. Our first season features first responders, and we deal with real life and real people, and that's not always proper or pretty, at least in the realms some of my guests and I swim in. Today, though, it's just me. And with a title like that, the greatest story ever told, I have got a lot to live up to. Can I live up to it? Probably not, I'll be honest. But look, I've got to take an episode to tell you what we're doing here and why, right? And this first season will specifically highlight my people, my first responder population. Why? Well, for one, they could all use a little hope, healing, and, of course, peace. But two, because years ago, I noticed something about this group, my group, that was, to me, remarkable. I just got my degree. I've been through the peer support training, and I started to wade into that mental health and wellness space. And after being part of that, after being part of the retreats, the groups, talking to so many, I stumbled across one specific thing that shocked me. One thing. All of their stories, guys, all of their stories, every single one that was filled with any kind of peace, redemption, hope, any kind of lasting freedom. Every single story, when I got below the surface and asked some deeper questions and probed just a little more, it all had one thing in common. And it's something we rarely, if ever, focus on above medication, therapy, groups, and good old-fashioned hard work. And look, I think that needs to change, and now. Even though, hear me say this, all of those things, medication, therapy, retreats, groups, hard work, they all have their place. But those will not be our focus. We're headed in the opposite direction. We're running away from the crowd, and for a very specific reason. But maybe I should tell you how I found the greatest story ever told first. It'll probably help you make sense of it all, and it may just change your life. At least that's my hope, if you need it. An unending and feeling peace and direction in your life like you've never seen or felt before. So, I don't know where you are. I don't know what you're going through, but come on. This is your invitation. It's an invitation to hope, healing, peace, and maybe even a little adventure by jumping in with me and listening to just one story, one of the greatest stories ever told. Give me a chance. Give me a few minutes of your time. I promise, guys, I won't waste it. I know. You pay with your time. Your time is valuable, and I will not waste it. All right, let's go. This story starts a little over 2 years ago. End of spring, beginning of summertime. It was hot, sun shining. My boys and I, Christian and Adler, were on the back patio. We are working on our brick patio that we had to pull up and start replacing some of those bricks and fixing some things. And of course, why would I do that myself? I'd enlist my strapping young men to come help me out. They were out back there picking up bricks, cleaning, positioning, spraying each other with a hose, throwing sand at each other. A lot of work was getting done, I promise you. I promise you it was, until it wasn't, and I kept my cool for as long as I possibly could. My anger issues these days are much less, and I'm able to control myself, which is wonderful. A wonderful change from those of you who knew me way back when. Shout out to my family. I know you remember. I'm different now. Thank you. All right, so I kept my cool for the most part. As I watched them do all this work, I have to admit, I could not stop thinking about how not to screw up their lives, how not to screw up my kids' lives, and including with my boys, my daughter, and my wife as well. I mean, I'll be honest, at that time, it felt kind of like I was in the lead and we were walking down this path right at night, this dark forest, those creepy trees that you see in all the pictures, the moon's out, birds flying, crows flying circles around our head, and there's all these different paths and turnoffs that you can go down, and it's pitch black. That's kind of what it felt like for my life, for my family. And the reason for that was most of you are probably listening from the book that I wrote, and that had just come out. I got a bunch of questions over email and reviews and replies that asked me kind of things of, hey, that book, it was great, but it ended rather abruptly. How did it change? How did you change? What's going on now? How does that work? How does God talk to you? How do I get God to talk to me? Why doesn't God talk to me? Why don't I hear him? Why is my spouse the way they are? How do I fix them? How do I fix my spouse? Will you talk to my spouse? To what church is right, what denomination is right, what theology is right, what should I focus on? How do I fix my life? And look, truth was, that really scared me, because it's easy to put off strangers in those emails. It's easy to skirt around those issues a little bit. But with my family, well, they brought up a whole bunch of questions in my head that I could not answer for my kids, that I could not answer for my wife, that I could not answer even for myself. And how do you lead a family through religion, spirituality, meaning, purpose, life? How do you lead them through that when you have no idea how to lead yourself? I didn't know where we were going when it came to faith. I didn't know where we were going when it came to religion, spirituality, or even that buzzword we use so often these days, mental health. Mental health. We'll get to that a little bit later. But I didn't know where I was going after the change, after the book, after God spoke to me, after I felt that presence, after that changed my life completely. So what? Now what? That was the question in my head. So what? Now what? How do I move forward? How do I make sense of faith? How do I make sense of religion? How do I make sense of spirituality and all that I think there is out there? How do I make sense of that all for myself? And how do I lead my family? I mean, my daughter's about to go off to college now. My son is not too far off. Good luck, guys. Yeah, good luck. I hope you figure it out. If you figure it out, could you be so kind as to come back and teach me? Could you show me what's going on? Because I'm kind of confused. And I'll be honest, I am a little bit of what you would call a Bible nerd. I am the dude that has questions and likes to dig deep into deep historical, biblical scholarship, like higher ed stuff. The higher ed stuff that you go into college one day and you come out and you are questioning everything that you used to believe. That's what I like to listen to. And it made me question everything that I believed. And look, I'm not trying to make anyone question their own faith. So if you don't have these issues or questions, please, please, please put some earmuffs on for the next statement that I'm about to make. But you might be surprised if you didn't know and didn't realize the amount of disagreements among biblical scholars about all kinds of issues and history. And those people, those biblical scholars who spend their lives teaching, leading, lecturing, digging in, exploring, those guys disagree. And if those guys disagree, what does that mean for me? What does that mean as I try to lead my own family that the professionals disagree? Who am I supposed to follow? That's the kind of stuff that was stuck in my mind. That's the kind of stuff I was thinking. That's what I was going through. So what? Now what? How do I move forward? All right, you can take the earmuffs off. I'm back to the story. So we're back on the back patio. The kids are spraying each other. Sand's flying. Sun's shining. They're yelling. I'm getting frustrated, trying not to show it. Finally, I just say, dudes, it's time. Let's go. Break. Break time. They go inside, dragging the sand and the water and the wet clothes and the socks in with them. And I walk out. I just let it go. I let it go. I manage it well now. Shut the door. I put my earbuds in. I walk over to where they left off. I start pulling up bricks. I start cleaning them off. And as I was working, I noticed about 10 to 15 minutes in, I had slowed quite a bit. And then 20 minutes in, I was just standing there, staring at the farm field, listening to what was coming through the earbuds. I set my bricks down. I set the sand down. I sat down on the back step and I just stared. I have a field, a farm field, cows, corn, beans back at my house. I just watched it. I sat there for the next half an hour and just watched that as the guy did his lesson. And I was struck. I was struck by one story. And I stopped when that was done. I set everything down. I rewound. Look, rewound the tape. Am I going back to the 1980s? I went back to the beginning of the teaching and I played it again. I sat down and I listened to another half an hour, just making sure that what he said was what I had heard. And I just sat there and I listened. And I questioned, is it really that easy? Is it really that easy? And I heard God say yes. Heard, sensed, understood, I don't know. I asked it again, is it really that easy? Yes. Yes, it is. This is the voice of God. It might not have sounded like that, but yes, that's what I heard. And look, if you have a few extra minutes, I would love to tell you this story because it changed my entire life from that day on 2.5 years ago. This story changes lives. It changed my life. It changed the trajectory of our family. And for the past 2.5 years, I've had nothing but peace, purpose, meaning, deep breath, freedom. When it comes to religion, spiritual life, even mental health, I've not looked back at all. I question no more. My mind is calm. I take the day as it comes. I'm taking this life as it comes. And I could not be more thankful. Why? Because it leads and it frees and it saves people for themselves, for their families, for generations to come. That story changes everything. And if you'll sit back for just a few minutes here, I would like to tell it. And you tell me what you think when we're done. You ready? All right, here goes. So you might not have known, but Mark, his gospel in the New Testament, he specifically wrote about me. Isn't that cool? He specifically wrote about me. And actually, he probably wrote about you too. See, in this story, probably you, maybe you if you relate to this, are sitting in a graveyard, like a legitimate graveyard. Gravestones around, old, weathered, gray, the grass high, uncut, unkempt. This is not a popular place to be. This graveyard is near the edge of the Dead Sea. And there's a gate in this graveyard that you can obviously lock. You and I, though, interestingly enough, we're stuck in this graveyard. Mark talks about it. He says we're stuck there because our community ended up locking us in the graveyard. Maybe it was to keep us from hurting them. We're seen as outsiders. We're seen as misfits. We're seen as the outcasts. of that community of life. We can't get our stuff together. We're full of demons, regrets, bad decisions, pain, questions, confusion. And we're sitting there, right? We're sitting there, or we're kneeling in the middle of this graveyard. We're just watching those gray clouds glide across the sky day after day. And all we hear as we watch this is negativity, voices, questions, confusions in our head. Voices telling us we're not good enough, we don't belong, we shouldn't stick around. In the midst of those, though, we hear what we think is a whisper. Somehow it rises over those, and it says, I'm coming for you. And I you sitting there in that graveyard, you don't know where this voice is coming from, but you hear it. And it's different than any other of the voices that you hear that are condemning and accusing constantly, telling you you're worthless, your life has no meaning, your family, your community, they'd be better off without you, telling you to give in to the darkness, give in to the demons, give in to the regret, give in to your past, give in to your past mistakes. And above all those voices, again, you hear it, a whisper, but somehow it rises. I'm coming for you. Not in a bad way, and more of a promise-filled tone that it has. And as your eyes leave the sky, leave that gray cloud as it's flying across, you see a boat coming in the distance. And you hear it again, I'm coming for you. And as you watch that boat, it arrives on the shore, and you see this man. You don't know who he is, and you don't know why this group is coming out of this boat, walking toward the graveyard across the sand, but your body, it starts to react, and you push up off the ground, your legs press up, you stand up, your mind's telling you, no, do not go there, but your body is not listening. Your body is listening to somebody or something else, and you're not sure what that is, but you begin running toward the group, running toward the man, and they walk to the edge of this graveyard, and you run to the edge, and the bars are there, but he can reach his hand across, and you just fall. You fall to your knees again in front of this man. Might be friends or maybe even students behind him, and he looks at you, and what you want to say won't come out. Why are you here? Who are you? What is this? But the voices do come out. The darkness, it screams at him from somewhere inside you, and you hear it. What do you want with me? The man smiles, comforting, calm, understanding. He reaches his hand out, and you reach yours out. And as soon as he grabs it, you feel it, electricity, and your mind goes black. Your body goes numb. The world stops. It's like time almost stands still. And all you know is the world comes back, and that black fades from your eyes. You see it. The clouds are gone. You look up at the gray sky that was there, and the clouds are gone. All you see is baby blue sky. The sun is coming down, warming your body. The smell of the sea, the salt, the humidity is in your nose. You breathe in. Oh, wonderful. You haven't felt this. You haven't sensed this for the longest time. His hand is still outstretched and holding on to you, and you just stand up. The darkness is gone. The voices are silent. Your eyes are clear. Your wounds, they're healed. This man standing before you, you have no idea who he is. You have no idea why this group is here. You've never met them before. You're not part of their culture. You have no expectation in him or for him or through him. You don't know what they teach. He did this. Please, you scream. You grab his clothes. Let me come to you. Let me come with you. Let me learn from you. I need to follow you. Learn your ways, your customs, your rituals. Let me learn what happened to me and why. Show me what I need to do. What is this? How? I don't know. I need to follow you. I need to be with you always. And all you want to do is follow this man. Learn from him. And he just looks at you. He looks at you and he smiles, shakes his head. No. You don't need any of that. You wouldn't understand it anyway. These guys that have been with me for however long, they don't even get it. Don't worry about it. I just need one thing from you. He looks at you and he says, I just need one thing from you. Just one. Go. Go back into the world, back into your world, your community, your life, your family, where you are from. Go back to them. Don't follow me. You cannot follow me. You need to go back. You need to run into your world and tell them what I did for you. Show them what I did for you. Live your life as an example of what I can do. The Christ looked at you directly and said, no, you can't follow me. At least not in the way you want to. Not by having all the knowledge, not by understanding, not by knowing more, not by getting it, not by researching, not by studying, not by doing or being, but by going away from him and into your world with the spirit that he gave you, with the healing that he gave you, with the direction that he gave you. Just go with what he gave you and show them. And as you contemplate that in your head, you look around and your community has come out in droves. Everyone standing around the shore that you know set you in that graveyard. Everyone you know that you used to interact with every day is standing all around with their families and their kids and their grandparents. They heard the commotion, they heard what was happening, and they came to see, and they see you now, healed, well, sane, the outsider, the misfit, the outcast, normal, glowing, free, relaxed, at peace. And then they do something incredible. They see the healing that you obtained, and they scream at this man to go. Everybody in the community is yelling and screaming, go away. We don't want you here. Whatever magic you just brought, whatever change you just brought, we are scared of. We don't want it. We don't need it. Go away. And the Christ just looks at you. And Jesus says, all right, I'm out. It's on you now. Go. Go tell them I will come back. He promises to come back. He doesn't give you a time frame, but he says, look, they won't listen to me. They're scared of me. They're scared of change. They're scared of the unknown. They're scared of what I can do and what I can bring. And to a point, it's understandable. So you need to go and you need to show them the change. And then I'll come back. And he walks away. He turns and he walks away and he goes back to the boat with his friends, his students, his disciples. He leaves. No, you don't need to follow me. Just go. So you do. What other option do you have? You go back to your community. You take back the healing that you have. You take back the peace that you feel. You take back the freedom that you now live in, given to you from Christ. And you just go live. And you tell anyone and everyone about what he did. And you show anyone and everyone how you now are. And if you read a little further in Mark, it details the return of Jesus. It details when he comes back to that same community. But instead, you see something completely different. This time, when he comes back, the community comes running. People come running to him. They bring their sick. They bring their hurt. They bring their darkness. They bring their past. They bring their demons, and they run to him. This community comes back to this man in droves, and they drop before him, and they ask for healing. They ask for healing. They welcome him, all because they saw first what he did in you, all because one person ran back, because you ran back to your community. An entire community of people is saved. They come back, they run to Christ in droves, they ask for help, healing, they ask for peace, they ask for freedom. We know what you can do because we saw it. Please, we need that too. And then they say something remarkable. They look at the Christ, the one they yelled at, the one they screamed at, the one they were scared of, and they just said, he does all things well. Thank you for coming. You do all things well. Lives, generations saved, with more to come. All because one person was healed and they went back to their community and told them. That, my new friends, brings me to the reason this podcast even exists. Earlier, I started to tell you that a few years ago, after I got my degree, after I got my peer support training, I started to wade into all the health and wellness space. And look, after being there for a little bit, I kind of decided it wasn't for me. The question is obviously why. And again, there was one thing. As I talked to so many people at all these trainings and retreats and programs, this one thing, this one differentiation in everyone that found any kind of lasting redemption and change stood out from the rest. What was that one thing? Was it the right medication? Was it the right kind of therapy? Was it the right group, the right program, the right retreat? No, it wasn't any of those. All of their stories, every single one for the past 5 years, started or ended with some kind of faith, spiritual experience, and focus. Every single one. Literally, I cannot think of one conversation I ever had with someone who had found lasting healing and change that didn't have that spiritual component, not only as part of their story, but as the focus of their story. Now, look, can it happen without that? I am not saying by any means that it can't. All I'm saying is that everyone I talked to, that was a component in it. So, that is why we're here. That is why I'm here. The sole focus of this podcast will be the spiritual component. And I don't have all the answers, guys, to exactly what all this is when it comes to spirituality. I never will. Look, I'm guessing maybe you probably don't either. But from the story I just told, the greatest story, one of the greatest stories ever told about Christ, we can rest peacefully in the mystery. We can be healed in the mystery without having to know or understand everything. All we need is a desire to move on from our past, freed from the demons and darkness with the Christ, his leadership, his connection. That's all we need to find redemption, to lead our families and everyone we love. He will be leading us from the inside. It all starts there. And after that, it flows out. It flows out into everything we do. It flows out into our time. It flows out into our relationships. So that is the focal point for this podcast. Look, as long as people are willing to talk with me about it, to tell me their spiritual truth about the connections they made, maybe even to push back a little bit. I don't care. I'll talk about it. Let's go. Let's have those conversations on those important, deep, meaningful topics. You were created to have that connection with God. That's the basis that I'm coming from. I guess my question to you, if you've been there, have you found freedom? Where did you find it? How did you move forward from the darkness? Does your story involve some kind of faith or spirituality component leading through that? You already know my story. That's old news. Now we're focusing on yours and everyone else's that'll talk to me. Redemption, life, meaning, all starting in the spiritual. What's your story? Whose life will you change? When will peace finally come to your house? And if it has, will you tell me about it for everyone to hear? Because I promise you, I've been to the groups, I've been to the retreats, I've been to those meetings. People need to hear it. They needed to hear it then, they need to hear it now, and they will need to hear it. They will need to hear your hope and your healing for generations to come. All right, guys, that is the first episode of the first season as we start to highlight police, fire, and the military. If you are a first responder with a story of spiritual and life redemption in any way, please reach out to me. I would love to talk to you. Shoot me an email, chad.campese@gmail.com. Again, my last name is spelled C-A-M-P-E-S-E. chad.campese@gmail.com. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook And please, 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 guys, if you think that this could be helpful for somebody, do not forget to like and subscribe. Seriously, I'm under the impression it could save someone's life, even generations of their families to come. You could be making a huge difference in their worlds by just hitting a button on your phone to make this more available for them. Finally, here's a quick snippet of our next episode. We talk about finding lasting peace and purpose in the midst of childhood trauma, failure as a father and as a husband, and coming to the literal end of yourself. We talk with Adam Davis. And again, I don't know where you're at or what you're going through, but if you need an invitation, reach out to me, a guest, but mainly, guys, to God. He will meet you wherever you're at. And I will catch you on the other side.
Shortly thereafter, I got up and I put on my uniform and I got in my patrol car and I went to work a 4-hour block of traffic enforcement. And after I finished that 4-hour block, I pulled my car into the parking lot of an abandoned gas station. I backed it into a parking space in front of the building and I pulled out my sidearm and I stopped right here. I yelled at God and I said, I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know where you're at, but if you have a plan or a purpose for my life, you can have it. Otherwise, I'm out. I'm tired of hurting. I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of struggling. I'm done.